Nigerians are reacting to the latest inflation data that was released from the National Bureau of Statistics, with the figures currently at 33.6%, showing drastic increase month on month and year on year. But I have my guest right now with me. He is Dr. Femi Epebinu. He is a public policy analyst, and he will be doing justice by breaking down the figure and also, bringing some light to the current inflationary pressures that we are currently facing. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us on Business Daily.
Thank you very much.
Doctor, we have heard from Nigerians on social media, but let me bring it to you now. How are you coping with the current inflationary pressures?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chiamaka. Yeah, for me, it's challenging. My case is similar to all those that we have seen from responses from the social media. It's quite challenging, and as Nigerians, we are expectant, and we really want some measure of changes to come up in no time from the government, the federal government, through the agencies that relate to us on issues that has to do with the economy. So my case, personally, as you ask, is still similar to some of the responses that we got from the social media. It's challenging. That's the word to use for now.
Indeed, in the words of my guest, Dr. Femi Epebinu, he says it is challenging. But today we will be looking at the efforts of the CBN so far towards addressing inflation. And my guest is still on standby. The conversation proper will commence after the break. To stay. And you're still watching Business Daily, coming to you live on Trust TV. And just before the break, we started a conversation on the efforts of the Central Bank of Nigeria towards tackling inflation so far. And my guest is still right here with me. He is a public policy analyst, Dr. Femi Epebinu. Thank you again, Doctor, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Okay, Doctor, before we went on the break, you said something. You said it's been challenging, even for you. And most of the feedback that we got on social media said the same thing. But let us look at the overall economic stability of Nigeria right now.
Okay.
While we were reading or going through the front pages of the newspaper, a particular story, stood out to me. And it was the one that said that, that something about misery index so far has increased. And this is due to, hospitals, challenges in the health sector, challenges in these different sectors. But when you look at all of these indexes, particularly now at the misery index, what would you say is the current state of the Nigerian economy generally?
Well, the stage is not a friendly one. Let me use that word. Now, let's look at the basis. We all know that the inflation rate has been coming up. The report that we have currently says that the current index, the current rate, hasn't been like that in the last 28, 30 years. So if we are experiencing something that we have never seen in the last 30 years at the moment, definitely it's not going to be a friendly thing. So we see that the current situation as it is now in the nation, in the economy of the nation, is not encouraging. Nigerians are expectant. Nigerians want results. Nigerians are not interested even in the figures. What we need as a Nigerian is just the result. The result. We'll probably still talk about the policies of CBN, but you see, at the moment, people are expectant. People want to, see results. People want to come out of their challenges. Over the time, we have a new government in place that's barely a year, and in the last 1 year, we have been experiencing some of the things that we have experienced over the years, as far as the economy is concerned. The issue of the fuel, the issue of insecurity, the issue of CBN, cybercrime, so many things have come up. And, Doctor, Nigeria, we have been responding, but we haven't seen changes.
Doctor, like they say, you've said something, you said, we've seen the numbers. And like they say, data never really lies. Yeah. And looking particularly at this data on inflation and at food inflation particularly, over 40%, which goes, when the president came into office a year ago, he had put out, a state of emergency in the area of food security. And it's been 1 year, towards addressing all of this, and not so much improvement has been witnessed. What would you say about this, especially in the area of food and agriculture?
Well, two things. We have always been having promises from the leadership. It's part of us. We'll look at the promises, we expect change. Change wouldn't come, and we move on.
Do we really move on?
We do move on. We are resilient. We do move on. We move on. Now look at the issue of security. Now, one of the paramount things, practical and fundamental things that actually, respond or bring about this issue of food increase, price increase in food items, is actually insecurity. But we have always moved on. So it's challenging, as I said, but our leaders, we need innovative ideas to turn around our situations. We have been using ideas that we are used to. We have been seeing ideas that we are used to. Some of the things that we are seeing now, we have seen them in past administration. So, but we need something innovative. Now, probably, maybe later, by the time we'll talk about some of the policies that the CBN is rolling out, we want to perhaps say maybe it's innovative, but we are expecting to want to see the result of those things.
We are
like
definitely.
The meeting that they're going to be doing from today till tomorrow. We are. If that meeting, we already know, it's not just a speculation that there will be increase in interest rate. So who feels that? The masses.
So let's talk to the impact of an increase in interest rate at this point in time, because there has been 2 increases so far this year, especially to businesses. Is that a favorable policy at this point in time?
At the side of the CBN, they will want to prove that it is going to be favorable. If we look at the reports thus far concerning the responses of the CBN governor, he's been saying that we are going to do this to make sure we curb inflation, we are going to do this. So for them, it's going to be a favorable thing. But, look at the other side, the masses. When there's an increase in interest rate, who feels the impact or the effect? SMEs. And, SMEs drive nations, drive the economy of nations. And so when you have challenges to get funds, when you have challenges to get loans, when it's quite challenging to get loans, then the effect will be bouncing on SME owners. SME owners. And when you have that, it flows down to the poor, the masses. And it's oftentimes negative. So, but the peculiarity about us is that we will pass through it, and we'll move on.
And that is the resilience of the average Nigerian.
And it's not supposed to. It's not actually a good image. Actually, it's not a good image because we have always passed through it. Okay, the current administration will probably go helping the current president finish 4 years. We'll look at it again whether we're going to see changes. If it doesn't come, we'll go vote another leader and we'll keep passing through it. It's not a good image for us.
Well, let's talk to issues around. Before we move on to the specific policies we have seen so far from the CBN, let's talk to consumer behavior. We've talked to the impact of this on MSMEs, which are, like you stated, the bedrock of any economy, and that is also the case here in Nigeria. But we have seen, the rising prices affect the purchasing power and consumption of Nigerians. But let's talk to certain patterns that you particularly may have noticed. What patterns would you say you've noticed in the area of, consumption, buying, purchasing power generally?
Reduction. We are part of the consumers. So when you go to the market and you realize that your capacity cannot meet up with your intention, you drop. You probably, if you had the intention of buying 2, 3, 4 things, and your financial capacity cannot meet up, you reduce to 2 or 3.
So we are better now in money management. Is that what you're saying?
You go to filling station. Myself as an academic, you go to filling station, you intend to buy maybe 10,000 naira fuel, and you look at the situation, you reduce to 5,000. That affects your productivity. You will not be able to go to work. Okay, you're supposed to go to work maybe 5 times in a day. In a week, you go 4 times or 3 times because of those effects. So there is a shift in our behavior to the negative. That's the way I look at it.
What about the standard of living now? Somebody was saying something the other day which I found quite interesting. Some person said, right now we don't have any average Nigerians. It's either you are on the one side of the spectrum, that is you are poor, or you are rich. There's really no middle class anymore. Do you agree with this?
I do.
Sentiment?
And the space is so wide, the gap between the poor and the rich. And somehow, that is the way the system enhances the capacity of the rich, in the nation. And that is the way the system makes the poor to be poorer.
When you say system?
Yeah, the pattern of doing things, as it flows from the leadership. The way our style of doing things, leadership style, our culture, the way our leader, the gap between the leaders and the led is so wide. And it's been persistent over the years. And we have not been able to rise up to see if those things could change.
But is there hope in closing? You've talked about the disparity now between the poor and the rich. But is there any hope towards, reducing this widening gap in the shortest possible time?
I'm not a pessimist, but I don't see any hope coming. I don't see, because you can only dwell, you can only respond to issues like that there will be hope when you see changes. Now let me tell you one of the things that we have that is peculiar to us. Now I said the gap between the leaders, irrespective whether political, in place of government, in all the sectors, the style at which we lead in this part of the world between the leaders and the led is so wide. It's so wide. And so we really have hope. We really have hope.
I mean, I will agree with you, especially due to the feedback we got on social media. That just depicts, that just a tiny percentage of Nigerians, reacting to the current economic situations that we are in. And like you said, I did see, a sign of hopelessness, but I wouldn't want for us to dwell on that now. But let's talk about the social consequences of all of this. With rising inflation, salaries are stagnant. Not so much is done in the area of wages, increasing wages. Would you say it has affected the nation socially, generally? The
nation or the citizens? Or
the
Nigerians?
Nation and the people.
Yeah, to a very large extent. It's money in our pocket drives a lot of things. So when you don't have, for instance, the increase, the inflation rate has drastically affected, salary earners. Why? Because the salary has been fixed over time. There's no increase. And we have increase in price rates. You understand? So one way or the other, whether we measure it, whether we go to the field to measure it or not, it is obvious that socially speaking, people are affected. People are affected. You don't call the responses you shared with us, you don't call them few. It's actually, an entire picture of what happens in the nation. So the social behavior, social relationship, to a very large extent, is affected.
Now to the CBN. We started off this conversation by, talking about the Monetary Policy Committee meeting that has started today. And at the end of that meeting, there are already speculations that interest rates will be increased. And we talked about how these will impact on SMEs. But let's talk about how these will impact on inflation. What are your expectations, interest rates and inflation?
How it will impact on inflation? The CBN's argument is that one of the things they want to do relating to their policy is that they want to work on the rate. I read a report that says that the rate might likely increase. That is an argument from the CBN. They have their reason. But the issue is when the rate increases, definitely it will affect the inflation rate. Okay? That will definitely be a jack-up in price too. So the issue is the average people are the most affected. The average people, we were talking about the space between the poor and the rich. The people that make up the category of the rich in the nation, they are not really affected. They are not really, the effect is not so much on them. That's just the way it is. And the inflation thing, what is terrible, what is not too good around the inflation rate is that we are experiencing the kind that we haven't experienced in the last 3 decades, as far as the current report is concerned. You understand? So the poor we get more the effect will be too much on the poor. And The average people, we say that the gap is so wide. So we have most of the average people, most Nigerians that used to be at the middle before, they have been moved back to be part of the poor. And so we now have a few up there that control the whole system. And you know, the situation, our systems, as I mentioned before, our pattern of leadership, our style of leadership, the way we do our culture in the nation, fuels these things. One of the things I want to say again is that why we will have so much effect on the poor is because the gap that exists between the poor and the rich makes the leaders not to flow with the led. We really don't know what is going on. We just see one policy or the other. A few Nigerians could just rise up to say no to that. But most times, even when we say no, government will still go ahead to implement some of those things that are not so favorable.
Are you saying there is a lack of communication?
Beyond communication is there. There is no, we don't have the feelings. The leaders don't really have the feelings of the led. I expect a situation where, for instance, the federal government, this current administration, whether the president or any of the ministers that are working with him, will come to address the nation consistently on issues that matters. If there's going to be a policy of government that, in quote, look not too favorable, and the policymaker might even know that to see that this policy might not be too favorable on the initial, government should be able to come up to address the nation. These are the things we're going to be doing. These are the things that will come up, and those information will back up with statistics. These are the things that will come up in the next few months. These are the things that will come up in the next 1 year. These are the things that government will be doing to make sure that the effect will not be too much on the citizens. But we don't have those things. What we just see is sudden policy announcement, and government want to go into it to begin to implement.
Would you say this? You just mentioned a situation where the people are not well carried along when it comes to policy announcement, policy implementation, and maybe long-term solutions from that policy. So at this point, would you say there is a case of a trust deficit between the led and the leaders?
Yes, and it's something that government, we need innovative leaders. And that is what the nation lacks to some extent. We need people we need leaders that will do things differently. That's innovation. You have been doing, something has been going on in the nation. You now come up to bring different idea to doing it. That's innovation. So I recommend innovative leadership styles to our leaders. That you want to do something that that it might not be so favorable, then you need to carry your citizens along. We need leaders that have the feelings of the citizens. This is inflation, for God's sake. Now, agencies of government made it known to us that this we haven't experienced in the last 30 years. So, what happens? What are you going to do for Nigerians? How are you going to cushion the effect? What are you going to do? Specific things that you want to do and specific result in projection. Those are the things that we are expecting, and we have not been seeing such. And it's not a good thing for us as a people moving forward.
Well, let us go to the specific areas. We have seen the CBN Act towards nipping inflation in the bud, and one of those areas is money supply. There has been the weekly money supply in the area of forex now, towards addressing the weakening naira. I mean, over time we've seen the naira gain to a certain extent, currently going for about 1,300 to $1 now, compared to how we had seen the naira fare in the past month. Wouldn't you in favor now of the CBN, wouldn't you say that has been some form of activity towards addressing inflation generally?
Okay, good one. And in addition to that, there is a particular policy that the CBN governor spoke about, that has to do with orthodox tie or something that they want to use so that it could curb inflation. We know that we have been reading some of these policies. As I said before, what we need is, what we want to see is results. You know. But now, hold on. Now, 1,000, you say 1,400 naira to $1. Okay, what do we want to see next month? We are interested in what is going to happen in the next few months to come. Even generally speaking, why should the dollar be up to 1,400? We need strategic turnaround to some of these things. In fact, we Nigerians don't even know what happens most time. For instance, when we had it at about 1,800 and something naira, what happened in a few weeks? Now, CBN had come in to say, okay, we are going to do this, we're going to do this. A couple of weeks ago, we have seen that we now have $1 to 1,400. Good one. But would that be an increase again? Would that be an increase again? And, I cannot say no.
I'd like for you to speak into the area of boosting our local production, because at the end of the day, whether or not the CBN keeps, putting reforms here and there, nothing will really change until Nigeria starts to produce and import and sell in the naira. So I'd like to hear from you now. How would you say our manufacturing industry is faring, and what are the reforms that we need to see?
It still falls on the leadership, political leadership of the nation, beyond what we are used to. In terms of campaign promises and all that, we want to see result. For God's sake, it is not. We there have been a lot of argument around the exchange rate thing. There are so many things that we are not even privy to. At the time in this nation, we read in history that even the naira was stronger than the dollar. Okay, now, what in specifics are we going to be doing? What exactly does government want to do? The federal government through the main agency, which is CBN. You understand? Now, we want to see responses from them to see how industrialization will come up. The thing still falls on the table of the leaders that will see the nation industrialized. We want to see how majority of the things that we import in this nation will be cut. There are so many things that we import in Nigeria that we can actually produce locally. We want to see how local, manufacturer should be enhanced. If it is in terms of giving them loans and all that. We have enough capacity, human capacity in the nation to do to produce many of the things that we even import. But it's just for our leaders to have the political will. This is what we want to do, irrespective of what we come thereafter. We're going to step on toes. We're going to, challenge some, stronger nations that we are not going to do this until we start our own. We just need innovators. We need transformational leaders, that will turn around the manufacturing sector. We have baselines of things that we could work upon to turn around the manufacturing sector of the nation. We have a lot of them. It's just for government to say, okay, some of the things that they have been doing probably in the Federal Executive Council meeting that we are not privy to for now, probably they are still not seeing them. We need government to come out to open some of these things to us and give us projections that in the next 1 year, this is what is going to happen as far as production is concerned. In the next 2 years, in the next 4 years, we have nations across the world that are already making projections into 30 years, into 50 years from now. We have capacity, human capacity in Nigeria that can do that. It's just for us to rise into it. Yeah.
Well, Nigerians are said to be the greatest resource that Nigeria has. That is the human resource.
Go to anywhere in the world, any sector of the economy of the world, you see Nigerians driving things there. In the US, in the UK, in Canada, any part of the world, whether in medicine, whether in education, whether in industrial, anywhere, IT, you see Nigerians in those places. So what happened about us, about our land? We have them there all over the world. And the environment in those places, they make sure that they will see reasons never to come back to the nation, to come and do same the country. Why? Because the environment here is not conducive. So we need leaders that will come with different mindset. That has been our challenge in the nation. We have always been having similar mindset. I'm privy to the past administration in this country from 1999 to date. We have always been seeing similar things, repetitions. So what we need is leaders that will come with transformative mind to do things that are peculiar. That's what we need.
Doctor, shortly before we go now, I want for you to take a minute to, point fingers at, I would say, 3 areas that are in desperate need of the structural reform and transformation you've spoken about.
Health, education in the industry, manufacturing. There are so many areas, but health, education. If we look at the nation, even though the whole of the nations of the world were affected during COVID, but if we look at our experience during COVID in this country, the health sector was opened up in the negative. The education sector was opened up. So we need drastic revolution, in terms of changes. I define my word properly. In terms of changes that should come in those sectors. Health, education, and manufacturing. Manufacturing that can come down to the SME development, innovations in SME. Those are the things we need, and we need government. See, we shouldn't just talk about these things. We need action. I want to recommend, strategic actions to government, the president, to bring, to identify innovative minds to be put in these key sectors of the economy. And by the time we have that, not minding the politics around the way we do things, we'll begin to see changes steadily. Yeah.
Indeed, we need to start seeing changes. And one of those ways is by ensuring that Nigerians consume what Nigeria produces.
Yeah.
And thank you again to my guest, Dr. Femi Epebinu, who has spoken, intensively on the policies of the CBN so far towards, nipping inflation in the bud, and the areas that need key reforms, some certain areas in the Nigerian economy that needs drastic reforms. Thank you again, Doctor, for your insight.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
Well, this is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of Business Daily. Join the conversation on social media. Let us hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the CBN's reforms so far? My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.